G'day. Another perfect day in paradise. I like this greeting because it could be true or it could be ironic. Either way, you're saying something positive and someone else that you is hearing something positive, at least on the surface. A person may undermine it because they're not having a great day. Often, and most often, people smile. And a smile has a whole physiological effect that goes down right through your whole body. There's a hormonal response. Your chest releases and your throat. By the way, it is bullshit that you use less muscle smiling than frowning. It's similar. Your muscles in your face are relaxed, and you're not using them. Most people have what they call a resting face, which connects back to what I was saying in my previous live post or video post. What do they call it? IGTV, about the default feeling. Your default feeling is often reflected in your resting face, but not always. We talked in the last IGTV post about your spheres of influence and your spheres of concern, and about your default feelings. So today I want to talk about where they all stem from. We live with presuppositions about the world. For want of a metaphor, they are maps of the world. And there is a great saying that goes, whose source I can't quite remember now, I know it's back in the 1930s, called "The map is not the territory." And often what people get confused about is between the map and the territory. They believe what they think about the world is true, is for real. And often there's a kind of protective arrogance in that idea, that you have a perfect understanding of how the world operates, and often our reactions before we've thought about it stem from the maps we have of the world, those default settings I was talking about before. Because, for instance, I mentioned people whose default setting is rage. They have a map of the world which places them as a victim, often, where they need to then defend themselves against the world. And it is sitting there in the background at all, that even a traffic jam is an attack on them. Thus you get the road rage, and that needs defending. And then quite often that default setting comes to your reflex influences, or is the foundation for whatever reflex reaction you have in relationships, to any kind of communication. So if your default setting is that sad, self-destructive thing of depression, it's likely that your first response to any kind of communication from the outside, and it could be the traffic, or it could be what someone's trying to tell you they love you and that you're a marvelous person, and you don't trust it because your map of the world has you as the source of all evil, as dangerous and scary and can't be trusted. I have an intimate understanding of this particular approach to life. Then the map of the world that creates anxiety has the world as being scary and overwhelming, and in a way it is connected to the rage map, because it is again a victim. And the rage map is one where is a little more empowered. The anxiety map is one where you are overwhelmed and can't control, and have no power to fight, and that can lead to a depression, to a version of the depression map, because there are lots of different versions of the different maps that create different default feelings and then different reflex responses to external inputs. So you can get to the helpless self-destructive map of depression because your rage, your right to defend yourself, and your boundaries has been disempowered, has been taken away from you through trauma, childhood experiences, etc. And then leading into anxiety. And anxiety is often future oriented because you're basically afraid of the future, afraid of anything that might happen from the outside. And then that can hook into depression, which is essentially past oriented, because in the past your power has been taken from you in one way or another. And so the battleground for us as therapists working together is to get beyond the catastrophizing side of this. Catastrophizing is when you turn a small event into a catastrophe. And it is the ultimate it is the negative generalization, the negative response to generalizations. NLP is one of the disciplines that I like and I use. It is, of course, has problems. Everything is limited. Everything has issues that you need to talk. We can talk about on another occasion. But one of the things that they talk about is that basically we have three functions, and I think actually it's two functions, but because two of them are quite related. We distort, we delete, or we generalize. Now, to me, generalization is a kind of distortion, but there are good reasons to separate them, because generalizations are a particular kind of distortion and have a big influence on the way we distort things. They're more generalized. They're about the map. Generalizations are very clearly a map of the world. You make a generalization and you don't realize that often when you make a generalization, say corporations only ever want to make a lot of money and they're evil, etc., etc., you're saying something, or the conspiracy theories that some people come up with, which are connected to the whole thing about evil corporations. Hidden under that generalization are other generalizations about the people in corporations and about the individuals and about about human nature. That there are some humans that are so amazingly intelligent and powerful that they are not really human like you. They are very different to you, to the person who's talking about the conspiracy or the negativity. And the whole shape of their map of what humanity is so different, because they have this map of divisions. There is others who are really, really other, really different. And then there are people who are, and are part of your life, who are cool. They're like you. You can trust them. They're part of your tribe. And so there's the other people who are enemies. So there's a whole way that our reflexes and the process of thinking that we have behind the experience. And the map sets up the defaults, the reflexes that you have in different situations and in different ways of, and that creates the emotions as reflexes. So, what do we do about it? Well, that's the whole point of therapy, and it's a long-term process, and it needs to be unique. What I'm going to say is generalizations which are pain. So one generalization is what I mentioned in the first one, is about mindfulness. It's about recognizing the unique moment that is your experience now, through your eyes, through the sensations of your skin, through the words that are traveling in through your ears, and then the thoughts that are passing through your mind. And that can lead into cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of like philosophy. Well, it is philosophy, really. It's science. It's a philosophy of psychology and science applied to your subjective experience. NLP is a form of philosophy as well. Cognitive behavioral therapy means you look at, well, the fundamentals of philosophy are basically three questions, is what philosophy has at its core. Who are you? How do you know what you know? And then how to live with it. The technical things are ontology, epistemology, and ethics. That is, who are you includes, from that question of who are you and how you answer that question, you then, who are other people? And you have the map I mentioned before, about whether you divide yourself off from other human beings or you make human beings the same as you, or at least similar. How do you know what you know? Do you follow your feeling and that's enough, and then often the feelings filter out evidence from the outside world? Or do you test your thoughts and feelings against the evidence of the outside world? That's where cognitive behavioral therapy goes. It says, test your feelings. What is the foundation for that thought? Like, if corporations are so evil, why? Where do you know? Where did that come from? Why do you know this? And so on. And then the ethic, of course, is how do you behave, and what is your actions based on your knowledge and your sense of who you are. So, and there are different kinds of maps that are involved in each of those layers. There's the map of your history that decides who you are is based on what you think you're capable of, how you feel about your body, how you feel about love, sex, and relationships, and how you participate in those. Then one of the things that's interesting about NLP is the how do you know what you know, and that's through your senses. And then there are spiritual approaches which go against that say that the senses are delusional and that you can't trust them. Yoga has that as part of its foundational map. Christianity has that as part of its foundational map. Some parts of Buddhism have it too, depending on which part of Buddhism you're in. And it's true, each of yoga and Christianity have different things. And even the philosophies going back to, in philosophical traditions, going back to Plato and his idea of the cave. Your senses are unreliable, and there are essential truths that you can have, which you cannot access through the senses. That's where Christianity gets it from. And I'm not sure about the Jewish part of the Christian tradition, but certainly when Christianity became part of the Roman Empire and the Greek traditions of the Roman Empire, and was influenced by philosophy way back when, one of the things, there's the teaching of Jesus in its most direct and simple sense, and then there's the interpretation. And the interpretation of Jesus, the theology, is deeply influenced by Platonic ideas and the Greco-Roman things like the Stoics and Manichaeans and Gnostics and all of these different traditions that were around Christianity in Rome at the time, and which influenced the way that Christianity was lived as opposed to what the teaching says. And that's true with going right through. There's a whole tradition going back to coming right through philosophy of distrust of the senses. And even the case of what happens with science. Science doesn't trust the individual sensory experience. You need, and the way that science operates is that you can't trust the anecdotal, which is the subjective individual sensory experience. You have trust for what is statistical. The truth in science is that something becomes a truth in science if any being, even animals, can experience the result of the experiment. So gravity is a law because it doesn't matter whether you're an animal, a bird, a fish, whatever you are, you experience gravity equally the same as human beings. And there are plenty of things which science has, and it's, physics, quantum physics, is all based on statistics. The more people that can experience it, the more experiments that you do with the more results you can test, you've got, the more true something is, because you cannot trust individual sensory experiences. You need evidence to back them up. And that's the foundation of the way cognitive behavioral therapy works. What is the evidence for that thought? So you are not just relying on your individual experience, you're recognizing the relational experience of being a human being in a community, receiving information from all around you, relating to other people. And when we think about ourselves and we define ourselves, we usually do that. You can't do that in a vacuum. You're not alone. You're filtering, as in deleting, distorting, and generalizing the inputs from other human beings. And what we do is, if your default setting is anxiety or depression or rage, each of those is setting up a default filter for the information that's coming into you. It's a map of the world, a map of who you are in the world, which is filtering the information that is coming through to you. And the best way to deal with it, to change it, is to recognize first that you are using default settings, reflexes that you don't have control over at first, and then getting behind them to the map of the world and changing the map and enhancing and continuing. The more flexible, the better the map, the better you operate within the world. The more experience you have, the better the emotional responses. And so we will talk more about this in the next one. But mindfulness, and active mindfulness, as in an interactive mindfulness where you are participating with a guide, and cooperating with a guide, someone that you respect and trust, can help you to test your maps of the world and the way you're experiencing, the assumptions, your definition of yourself, the definition of how you know things, so that you can change those and then your behaviors will change, and your emotional responses are part of those behaviors. They're almost at the next stage of the behavior. So they're just before the behavior, but they are a behavior because your physiology is responding and acting on your thoughts, and before your thoughts, the maps on which you base your thoughts, and the emotions come out of those. So this is an ontology. This is a definition of self, of the human being and how it operates. And you may agree with it, you may disagree with it. That's up to you. Hopefully you find it kind of helpful. Have a wonderful day. My website is in the links, is in the top, in the bio. That's right. I'm not that good at this last part of it. I'm happy to do stuff online with people. I use hypnosis, cognitive behavioral therapy, NLP, mindfulness with Buddhist psychology and practice, as well as Tantra for relationship practice with people. The ultimate relationship in Tantra is your relationship with yourself and your world. Thus, we come back around to the subject of the day. Have a great day. Another perfect day in paradise. Bye.